What up guys, Cole here, and recently I spoke at a mastermind of 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs on how to build sales teams. And specifically, what I did was broke down how we went from 0 to 3.2 million a month in 26 months in 7 steps. So I basically break it down from all the way from validating your offer to having multiple different sales teams with multiple different sales leaders and everything in between. So we're gonna splice over to that presentation now. Enjoy the presentation, guys. See you later.
So Daniel, why don't you introduce Cole and bring him on and have him rock and roll our next presentation.
Yeah, so Cole Gorin is probably new to our world. I had obviously heard about Cole, seen him on social media, and then one of our coaching clients who we'd worked with last year named Sasha works with Cole and helps him out with some financial things. And she started always talking about Cole, and so she's like, he's such a great guy, he's super successful, he's a machine. And so I started doing a little bit more research on him, and when I knew that we had the upcoming mastermind and Craig was asking for some, potential speakers, Cole was in the front of my mind. So we reached out to Cole. He was more than gracious to come on and share. His building a scalable sales machine is what Cole is going to be presenting to us today. So Cole, welcome on. You are good to go if you want to. Linda, is he able to share his screen?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, cool. Good. There you go.
We're ready to rock. We're going to start a little bit early.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
You ready to go?
So basically, real fast, if you guys would help me out, I don't know who would be the best person for this. I've never given this presentation before, so I just want to make sure I don't go like way over. And so like maybe, how long do I have, an hour or 90?
An hour.
Okay. Yeah, you might have to kind of like let me know at the 20-minute marks. I went pretty detailed. Like there's so much to this stuff, and I went pretty crazy detailed, so I'm gonna have to roll through it pretty fast. So basically, guys, nice to be here. I've known about and followed Craig for a long time. I mean, even before any of this stuff, even before I was in sales, I knew who Craig was. So it's pretty cool to come full circle and talk about this to you guys. This is really kind of what I'm known for in the industry and what I believe I'm best at. The presentation is called How to Build a Scalable Sales Machine, how I built a 30 million plus year sales force that runs on autopilot. So right now, this is kind of serendipitous, but right now, my sales team is having their morning meeting without me. I don't have to be there. And we routinely, all through high ticket sales, we don't sell anything that's not on the phone. And we do about 3 million a month. Last month we did 3.2 million in sales. And so that happens completely on autopilot without my input at all. And then you guys were talking about Alex Ramosi. Honestly, guys, besides from myself, there's very few people who solely rely on like a phone sales model who can say that. So it's what I'm here to talk about to you today. So what is this all about? What is building a scalable sales machine all about? It means the sales not be relying on you. Okay. Who's been here and says, oh man, like every time I have to make a sale, I have to get on the phone. Or even maybe if you don't have a phone sales model, you got to send an email, you got to write some copy, you got to do a promotion, you got to do a launch. It's about being your sales and your entire business not being reliant on you. It's about your sales team performance not being reliant on you. So phase 1 is people complain about themselves being, oh, I'm on the phone all day, I run a call center around a business, etc. Phase 2 is they're like, dude, I got to micromanage a sales team. I got to freaking, talk to these sales guys every day. I got to deal with their problems, all of this stuff. It's about sales being independent of your time, energy, and output. I already told you guys this, but again, my sales team regularly produces about 100 to 200 grand a day. I take 0 sales calls. I only attend the meetings when I want to. And it produces deals like clockwork, regardless if I'm on vacation, doing deep work, whatever, which is really the benefit. Like now what I do is, I'm not like taking a bunch of vacations, but if I have to write something or I have to produce content for the clients or whatever, I have hours of time undisturbed that I can do that. And the sales come in no matter what. So that's what this is building all about, or that's what building a scalable sales machine is all about. It's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. So just a quick introduction. I'm going to breeze through this since I don't know how much time we have. Cole Gordon. I'm the owner of Closers.io. It's a multiple 8-figure sales training company. I already kind of told you guys our revenue numbers, where we're at. I'm right now really known as the kind of go-to sales expert, at least in the high ticket coaching, consulting, influencer type of industry, even agencies. We're pretty much kind of the 800-pound gorilla. But I'll tell you this, guys, like in high school, I was socially awkward. I was always made fun of. I had terrible social skills. When I started in sales, I was the worst sales guy on the team. And so I was not a natural. And the reason I tell you that is because sales and sales team is a skill. It's not who you are, right? Like nobody comes out of the womb and is this great salesperson or is this great sales trainer. And so many times I see entrepreneurs, and I know Craig told me a lot of you guys are either just below 7 figures or multiple 7 figures. I heard a lot of people who come to me, they're like, man, I want to work with you because, I'm not a sales trainer. I'm not a sales guy. Right. And to be honest, building a skill, the same way you have to learn the skill how to generate leads if you want to be a business owner, if you're going to run a phone sales model, you got to learn the skill of 1, selling, and 2, building a sales team. I know you guys were talking about Alex Ramosi. One of the things he says in his presentations and his YouTube videos is you got to build the skill of running a sales team. Right. It's one of the big things that took him from, I think it was like 7 figures to multiple 8 figures. And it is so true. So a few clients we've worked with, Tony Robbins, Agora Financials, $1.5 billion a year company, Frank, Dean, Jay Abraham, Rich Sheffrin, Todd Brown, Jeff Lerner, Tanner Chittister, if you guys know him, he's also one of my really good friends, Alaric Heck, YouTube ads guy, among 500 others. To be candid, almost all of those kind of like big names in the industry, we've really almost worked with them all. Like, we just had, Ryan Moran come on as a client the other day. Brooke Castillo, who does, 40, 50 million a year, just came on as a client the other day. So, I'm honored to be able to work with those folks. And one of the things I like about what we do the most is we get to work with actual really cool people who are doing great things. And we get to be a small part of their success. So the other thing I'll say about our success, kind of why you should listen to us, is there's a lot of kind of sales gurus and trainers and whatever out there. I can tell you this for sure. We are the only person who's actually kind of done what the clients are trying to do. There's so many sales recruiters or trainers out there who they might have, they're the sales team. They don't even have a sales team for their own business, but they're helping you build a sales team. Right. And, I'm not saying all of that is bad, but what I say is, I have probably one of, if not the pound for pound, highest performing sales team in the industry. My, done for you recruiting team, like what our business actually does is we take entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, and agencies. We place salespeople, setters, and closers in their business and help them build the infrastructure to scale their sales team. So that's a done for you aspect of my business. We interviewed last month 854 sales reps out of 3,500 applications. So nobody in the industry is doing anything like that, not even close. And it's given us such a high volume of activity and high volume of interviews. Like we've become really good at this, not just for ourselves, but also our clients. So anyways, what I'm going to walk you through today is really the step-by-step process of how I've done it and how I teach clients how to do it. Okay. Literally going from 0 to, I'll tell you how we got to 3 million a month. I can't really tell you how to get to 100 million because I'm not there yet, but I believe we will be on pace for that next year, about 8.3 million a month. I think we'll hit that. No problem. So some good news, bad news. Building a sales floor on autopilot is possible. And I've realized, because I talked to our market, when I started, I was on the one on the phones and I had to build a sales team around myself. When I talk to entrepreneurs, people are like, dude, I just want the sales to come in and be off the phones. And I don't want to have to mess with the sales team. It's too much. I just want to do what I do best. I want to focus on content, speaking, working with the clients, not being a glorified sales manager. All of that is possible. You can have that thing running on autopilot. The bad news, it does not happen in a day. You can't just hire, I don't care if it's an agency, you can't just hire somebody and then you're there tomorrow. Okay. Very, very rare exceptions where that can actually work. It's going to take work. It's going to take time in the trenches. And to be candid, most entrepreneurs, they're not willing to do it. And because that, they're never going to build an evergreen sales machine that runs on autopilot. And instead, what happens a lot of times is they're going to go back to, launches, challenges, affiliate promos, posting on social media, all of this stuff, instead of having an evergreen business. Okay. So for instance, I literally I don't want to say I don't do anything in my business. I'm working on my business, but I don't have to write copy anymore. All of our leads come from 1 5-minute video and Facebook ads, at least on the B2B side, or YouTube ads to the same video. And it just runs on autopilot, completely evergreen. Which, if you're going to have a huge exit in your business, kind of like, I guess we're using Alex as an example today, but if you're going to have a huge exit in your business, you got to have it running like that. Nobody's going to buy a business where it's dependent on you doing a launch every month. And so I've worked with a lot of the top gurus out there, and some people I haven't named. everybody wants the evergreen thing. Even the biggest names in the industry, they're tired of doing, all these launches. They want the evergreen thing. What stops them from having it is the unwillingness to actually just kind of bite the bullet and do the work for a little bit. Okay. So to do it, we have to have the proper sequence. Okay. Automatic selling consists of 7 steps, right? Getting to the point where everything's running on autopilot, 7 steps to get there. That's it. Okay. The issue is people try to skip. They see step 7, they're at step 2. They try to skip. Okay. We can get there pretty fast. I mean, in about a year, I went from selling on the phone to having a bunch of sales guys doing the revenue we're doing. You can get there pretty quickly. And then you have an asset. Your business is really an asset, not just you promoting stuff all the time, but you got to follow the right sequence. And I'm going to show you the sequence in this here. Okay. So step 1 is validating the offer. Some of this stuff, like this one, for instance, I think you guys have already kind of been through a little bit. All right. So I'm going to spend less time on this and more time probably on the stuff the way you're at, but I still have to cover this. Okay. So if you're here, hopefully you've already done this. Validating your offer means the delivery is built out and it's validated. The messaging works and it's getting leads and sales calls. And the packaging of your offer is resonating with people on the phone. So the way I teach it is your messaging is what you use in the marketing. The packaging is how you explain the deliverables of your offer on the phone. Because if you know anything about phone sales, you don't explain, like if you have a sales call, what you're not gonna, a big part of the sales call is not gonna be, okay, well, we have, a Facebook group, we have this amount of group coaching calls, we have this. It's more about what you're gonna get done together. And what you're gonna get done and how you package that all together is what I'm referring to as the packaging. Okay. Usually I say offers validated when you sold 10 plus packages. And a common example, a lot of times when people are in kind of step 1, they're usually, maybe doing some Instagram, some Facebook group or whatever. They're doing some organic or cold email. They got a few sales calls trickling in, and they're just kind of validating this thing for the first time. If you're a little bit more established, maybe you do kind of a launch and you sort of validate the offer that way. Okay. One thing I will say about this is what's really key is you think with begin with the end in mind, in the sense that you want to build a delivery container that is scalable. So if you want to get to step 7, you got to kind of you can't really put your sales on autopilot without at least doing several million a year. You're just not going to have enough cash flow and enough infrastructure around yourself. Even if your price is pretty low, you got to kind of have that. So that's going to require you taking on a lot of clients. So I would think about, would this model scale to 50 clients, 75 clients, 100 clients? And you don't necessarily have to do that immediately. Like if you have 3 clients full time, I wouldn't think about getting, okay, I got to build my fulfillment to scale to 100 clients. But just sort of have that in the back of your mind. I know when I started, I took on 10 clients in about a week, and then I paused to kind of build out my program. This is when I very first started. But I also knew in the back of my head, and this is because I had sold for companies like Traffic and Funnels and some other big names in the industry as a full-time sales rep before I started my own sales consulting thing. And I kind of knew from being involved in the space how to build something that would have that scalability in terms of delivery long-term. So a lot of times, what's going to keep you from progressing in these steps is when you get bottlenecked on your delivery. So just an aside there. Okay. The next step is validating your optimal selling system. Okay, we're going to spend a little bit more time here. So who on this call here has read the book Ready, Fire, Aim? Maybe just pop in the chat if you guys have read it. So Mark Ford calls it the OSS, the optimal selling system, I believe. I hope I didn't mess it up, but it's OSS, all the same. And for our purposes, though, this is going to fit 2 criteria. Okay. Criteria 1 is a consistent, repeatable, and scalable way to turn prospects into sales calls. And criteria 2 is a consistent, repeatable way to turn those sales calls into clients. Okay. And the way I want you to think about it is you're building an automatic conveyor belt. Okay. Right. You're building an automatic conveyor belt. And the thing about this conveyor belt and this system, like any system, if it's working properly, more inputs should be more outputs. Maybe not in a complete linear correlation, but for the most part, inputs, outputs. You'll see what I mean in a second. So we're going to, in the next 2 slides, is going to break down criteria 1 and then criteria 2 here. So criteria 1, and this is probably, it's the hardest one, I think, for most people, is a consistent way to turn a consistent and repeatable and scalable way to turn cold prospects into sales calls. Okay. So, and I did get this from Hormozy as well, but there's 6 methods in which you could generate leads for your business or generate customers for your business. Okay. There's owned, earned, word of mouth, paid, affiliate, and outbound. Okay. Owned is like your email list, right? Earned is like your YouTube channel. Word of mouth is like your referral pipeline. Paid, I think you guys know what that is. Affiliates, I think you guys know what that is. You know, if you're on an affiliate network like ClickBank and you're doing partnerships or whatever. And then of course, outbound, picking up the phone, end-to-end selling. Okay. So all of these, I want to be clear, could be your consistent, repeatable, scalable way. All of them could be. However, in our industry, really, I found only 2. And really probably only one is going to be the repeatable way. I'm not going to say that you couldn't do it through affiliate or earn. For instance, I have a client who has 1 million subs on his YouTube channel, and he kind of got to 50 grand a month just through like AdSense or whatever. And then he wants to do high ticket now. So now he's doing high ticket, and he's banking 250 grand a month in like his first month, right? He has such a pent up demand and a huge following that is kind of his conveyor belt, right? It works for him. I also know people who they're just amazing at affiliates, and they have a great affiliate manager, and that also works for them, But I will tell you, in all my experience, 98% of people, it's going to be paid. And for us, we have multiple channels now. We started with paid. Well, we started with kind of like a little bit of organic and word of mouth and stuff like that. But then when we moved to step 2 here, really the key was getting paid dialed. And then once we got past 8 figures, then I started looking at kind of diversifying into one more channel. So just as an aside, it's always smart to master one channel first. And then once you get to a point of critical mass, try to master another channel. So for instance, on our B2B side, we have paid working, but we also literally just pick up the phone and cold call people. And that's right now doing about 100 grand a month. And I think I could scale that channel to another couple million a month and really beyond, to be honest. I mean, once you get that dialed, it's very, very hard to have the pure end to end working like that. But once you get it dialed, it's pretty awesome. So we want to have this here. And again, I think I mentioned this, but the key is inputs versus outputs. The reason for this is if we're really going to build a scalable sales machine and replace ourselves from sales, we need something where we can pull the lever and get appointments coming in at will. Okay. So it's just so easy with paid to do that because you could just spend more. With outbound, you could do it too, because I can just hire more SDRs and get more appointments. But the thing is, if you're kind of sub 7 figures or sub 2 million a year, outbound is a slow burn, man. It's like, it takes, if you guys have read Impossible it's either Impossible or Inevitable. It's by the guy who wrote Predictable Revenue. It's a big SaaS sales team book. They talk about it taking 12 to 18 months to build their outbound sales team, right? Ours took a little bit faster than that. However, what I will say is it does take a while, and you're kind of better off validating a funnel. Okay. Before we move on, do we have any questions? I can want to make sure, is everybody getting this? Is everybody making sense? So criteria 2 is sales. Okay. Creating a repeatable and scalable sales system. And this would still be when you're on the phone. Okay. Now there's this thing that we coined as founder syndrome. And the limiting belief is only I can sell my insert the thing. Only I can sell my offer. Only I, because it's, I've heard this with like everybody, and I've never really seen it to be true. Okay. Because because it's hormone therapy for women and it's a very specific thing and it's very personal to them, only I can sell it. I've never once, I've worked with 500 plus sales teams, guys. I've never once seen this as a thing. Okay. And I'll tell you this, like even me, I was selling to people like, I told you guys, like freaking Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, and, people who like, when I was up and coming, I was like, oh man, these are like the giants of our industry. And my sales team has sold those people. Agora Financial, 1.5 billion sales team, so it really doesn't, I like sales. I enjoy getting on the calls now, but I don't have to ever for anything. And no matter how big the client is, no matter what. And honestly, if you do sell to successful people, as another aside, the more successful somebody is, a lot of times they just understand that like they're going to talk to the sales team. Like they just don't have an issue with it. And even with, real personal things like hormone therapy, porn addiction, never had an issue. So the reality is and a lot of people too think that they can only sell their thing because it's a very specific thing. It takes all of this knowledge to sell it. The reality is the same way you can train a doctor to diagnose a disease. There's a repeatable diagnostic and prescription process for every sale. Okay. And what you have to do is you have to consciously, you can't just wing it. You have to consciously create that process and then teach it to the sales rep. Okay. That's why getting good at sales is one thing. But then the second thing is transferring that skill set to somebody else at scale. It's the other skill you have to learn to build a sales team, right? The same way as eventually like one of the skills, and I kind of have this already done, but I'm good at marketing. I enjoy it. So I've kind of blocked myself from removing myself. But same thing with lead gen is if you want to have a CMO runs your marketing department on autopilot, you got to teach them and transfer the skill of marketing to them and be able to help them do that at scale, right? And then you have a CMO, director of sales, director of fulfillment, director of ops, and you lead your team through your execs. So anyways, it's also a big issue with people not having a repeatable and scalable sales process is that they don't have criteria one figured out yet. Okay. So it's much, much easier to do this when essentially you have the same type of prospect coming on the phones. They're coming from the same direction, meaning like they're all coming from Facebook ads. Or they're all coming through the same funnel, right? So they're all responding to the same messaging and they have the same 2 or 3 different problems every single time, right? They're spitting off the conveyor belt. Because once we have that same person coming in every time, the reps get more like you at first, and then eventually the reps, they're talking to that same person with the same 2 to 3 problems every single time, repeatedly. And because of that, it's very easy for them to build a framework around it. The contrary of this is like the other extreme example of not this, is if you're a full service agency and you're one of those people who does everything for everybody. And they're like, their USP is that they're a one-stop shop. It's like the worst USP ever. So they're like, oh, I'm a one-stop shop. I do everything for everybody. And because of that, you get people on the phone who need SEO. You need people on the phone who need, Google PPC, YouTube ads, branding. You're never going to be able to teach a sales team. Like, I mean, you're basically running 5 to 10 different businesses in one. So this is why you got to create that clear offer, great packaging, very clear on the 2 to 3 problems that you solve, and then a conveyor belt system to feed people into that. And then that sets you up for this step. Does that make sense? So like for us with the sales team stuff, it's not like we just fix one problem, but there's pretty much like 2, 3, maybe 4. It's like either people need appointment setters for their business, right? So we've done for you, recruit those people for them. People need closers for their business. So we've done for you, recruit and staff those people for them. People's sales team is underperforming / they need sales training. So we help them with the training, or they're having trouble with the systems, infrastructure, management of the team. And eventually they want to kind of revamp their team to get it performing and or remove themselves from management so it runs on autopilot. I mean, I think I listed 4 things there. And there's nothing that's outside of those 4 usually. Right? So you can have multiple problems, but guess what? For each of those 4, I've created for the sales team a diagnostic track that helps them understand and diagnose which of those 4 do they have and how do we position what we have around that. Make sense? Cool. So that's step 2. Step 3, now we can delegate sales calls. So this is getting to the fun stuff. At this point, we're gonna have a validated offer, validated lead flow, validated sales process. Okay, everything is working like a conveyor belt. Now we're gonna change one variable, and it's you. It's really key, guys. We change one variable at a time, right? If you're testing a landing page, a sales page, it's not converting. Would we test the headline, the color of the page? We would change out the lead, also the order button bump and the price. Are we gonna test all of those things at one time? No, like duh, right? But I'll tell you guys, with sales team building, People like to test everything all at once. It's like once they finally get everything working to a point in which they're like, okay, I can remove myself and put in a sales rep. They're like, but let's also change the funnel. Let's change the price. I'm like, no, you are closing at 40%. You need to take you out, put sales rep in, and see what they close at. Okay. And on that note, we're always going to hire 2 closers at once. Okay. There's a saying, I forget what it is. It's said in the SaaS world about hiring 2. It rhymes, but I forgot it. Anyways, you always hire 2. And it's really for the common sense reason. I don't know if it's going to be any groundbreaking insight for you guys here, but when you hire 2, especially if it's the first thing you've ever hired, you got to go comparison to how they perform, right? So if they both don't perform, first of all, if you were performing, it's much, much easier because you could baseline it off of your performance. But if they don't perform, it could be that you're being a bad coach, right? Chances you could have hired 2 really bad people, probably more likely that you're just a bad coach and you don't know how to manage a sales team. You don't know how to train a sales team. You don't know how to coach a sales team. Okay. If one works and one doesn't, then you just fire the one that doesn't work and you hire another person. A lot of times, either scenario 1 or scenario 2, or sorry, that second scenario is going to happen. The third scenario is they both work. And if you go from, and this is one of the things I love most about the people that we help, is our kind of main client as the entrepreneur who's never delegated a sales call in their life. They're at 40 to 100K a month, and we help place a sales rep into their business. And it's their first time off the phones. So it's like a whole epiphany for them, like, oh my God. And if you go from just you selling, which is usually about 50% of volume, to 2 sales reps selling, a lot of times that can be a 2 to 4x lift in revenue. So we'll see, like, I just love that explosion because you'll see entrepreneurs go from 50K a month to like, boom, 350. So anyways, always hire 2. The caveat, this is important, is, and if you do criteria 1 of creating a consistent, scalable, and repeatable lead flow system, you got your OSS down. If you do that, you shouldn't have this issue. But some people, it's like they got enough volume for 1, but they can't pull the lever and get volume for 2. So because of that, you got to hire 1, which really you also need to fix your lead generation. But some people, like, they, for instance, maybe have a really great IG and they get about 3-4 sales calls a day, but it's not something where they can boom, pull the lever, get 12 sales calls a day, like ads, for instance. So in that scenario, should you not get a sales rep? I think you should still, but you're not going to be able to hire 2. Because if you hire 2 and they both got a call to 2 a day, they're probably just going to fail. We're going to be like, because from a sales rep's perspective, guys, so one of the things that helped me build this business is that I was a sales rep for years. And from a sales rep's perspective in this industry, what they are really effing tired of is entrepreneurs who overpromise in terms of lead volume, lead quality, and commissions, and underdeliver. So and a lot of the reason all these sales reps come to me and we place them is because they know if they go through us, we don't mess with that stuff. We make sure the entrepreneur has their shit together. So the thing is you just don't want to, if you want a great sales rep, it's the same way as if you want a great prospect. You got to develop the offer that attracts a great sales rep. Part of the reason I have the best sales reps in the industry is they make the most, and I pack their freaking calendar full. Pack the calendar full. We have a great culture. They make the most. And I believe I invest in their own personal growth and development higher than anybody else does in the industry as well. Right. So I created the vehicle. It's like the same way your offer is the vehicle from current situation to desired situation on the prospect. My company and our mission, vision, and values is the vehicle for all my employees, current situation to desired situation. Right. And we really heavily invest in trying to develop that person. And sometimes that means we develop them so much to where they got to go transition on to something else and do something bigger and better. Usually I can find opportunities for them to grow as an entrepreneur inside of our larger conglomerate, right? That's the key, but that's just an aside. If you want to have great salespeople, become the company who who's worth attracting those people, right? Who deserves those people. Hopefully that makes sense. Quick note on hiring sales reps. I mean, I could do I kind of started to do this, and then I realized I don't think I have 3 hours to give this presentation. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of this. But the hiring process, just to give you the extreme high level, we have them submit an application that goes into a Asana pipeline. And then from there, what we do is we ask for a video. Okay. We usually ask for a video uploaded on YouTube or what's the other thing? Maybe Loom. And, we give them a script for not a script, but a prompt in terms of what questions we want them to answer. We filter so many people out just from this. It's great. Okay. Then we grade all these applications. And then we have a screen. And then this is what you would do. This is not what we do internally. What we do internally, because we field thousands of applications, is like a little crazy. But this is what you would do. Okay. Sorry. This thing is so sensitive. I keep getting all messed up. And then what you do is you have a screening interview. So you take the best video applications and you have a screening interview. Screening interview, 30 minutes, and you're running them through basically a process. Okay. Again, I could do a whole training on screening interviews. A great book to read is Motivation-Based Interviewing. I think that's a great book. Also, Who is a good book. Those are two of the best ones I've read on interviewing. But a lot of times with sales, you really want to see, again, where is this person at? Where do they want to be? What are they currently doing now to generate income? What's the most they've ever made? What are they making now? If they're transitioning away from something, why are they transitioning away from it? And why now? Why are they serious about this? A lot of things too is, do they look at sales as a stepping stone to something else? Are they oh yeah, I want to do a sales gig because I'm working on my Amazon FBA business on the side and I need some income. Are they doing that? Or is it somebody that dude, I just love this and I want to put on the blinders and just really focus on the skill. Right? So you want to dictate those things. You want them to be full-time or at least have the potential to go full-time within 60 days. Okay. A few other things, like a motivation-based interviewing, they talk about passion, attitude, and experience. So experience, obviously, what is their sales experience? And the great thing about sales reps, don't grill them too hard on this, but I would ask them exactly what their production was, how much revenue it was, what they make in commission, and I would have them walk you through the last 3 months at their sales gig. Because you're going to be able to see if they're telling the truth, if not, so, okay, great. When did you finish up? Oh, I finished up in November. Okay, gotcha. So in October, how many units did you produce for the company? Gotcha. And what was the commission from that? And then what was the total revenue based on the units? Okay, great. And probably approximately how many calls were you taking from those units? Don't grill them too hard. Some of them might not know. But dude, I can go back. If you asked me 3 years ago when I sold full time, I could tell you I couldn't tell you calls, but you'd understand I wasn't bullshitting, basically, right? So go into their performance and really chunk down. The other thing I would look through, so that's experience. Experience is pretty straightforward. Attitude is their, best way to put it in terms of how the book stated is their attitude in respect to challenges. Right? So do they have an internal locus of control or external locus of control? So you want to see what challenges they had in the past and how they dealt with those challenges. How they overcame them, how they think about them. What would they do in this scenario? And do they have a victim mindset or do they have everything extreme ownership mindset is a good way to put it. Okay. And then passion is actually the most important because somebody who's the reason I was so good is I was passionate about sales. And then I told you guys, I wanted to put the blinders on and just I was dude, I just want to become great at this thing. Cause I was running a business and I was dude, I was 22. I was man, I got to focus on all these things. It's so confusing. I just got out of college, I can barely pay my bills. I had no idea how to do a P&L. I'm dude, I'm not doing this business thing. I'm just going to focus on just becoming great at this one thing. And I was so passionate about working on it. I was investing in myself. All of these things, right? And so because of that, my passion for it, your passion is going to dictate the level of energy you put towards something when you do have a challenge. and how much you're going to work at it, which is almost the number one thing. So just as another aside, our top producing sales rep, I think she produces like 400 grand a month, something around this, probably 350 to 450-ish range. And she had no sales experience when she came to us, but she was the most passionate and had the best attitude. And I mean, it wasn't like, oh, okay, so she had to ramp for 3 months. No, she was like the top performer in 14 days, has never looked back. So a few things there in terms of screening interview. Then what we do is we do a mock call. What we do here is a mock triage call. So we teach them how to do a 15-minute, if you're familiar with like a triage to a one call close process. So we have them do a quick qualifying call. That just helps you see kind of how they are on the phone, what their people skills are. It also is much, much quicker to get done than if you expect them to do a full sales call where they're going to learn your offer, learn how to pitch it. That just takes, usually that'll take a week. You got to prepare a big training for that. This gets the same thing done. So 15-minute call, boom. And you do an interview here. At the end, you give them some feedback and you see how they take it. Do they get defensive? Are they coachable? Do they ask you for feedback? That's the really good people. And then we do a scorecard interview, which basically we go over the scorecard. We use the model very, very similar to who. I start with communication. And this is where essentially if you're on this interview, man, this thing is so sensitive. If you're on this interview, this is basically qualifying and discovery. Down here, now we're selling. Okay. So in the marketing to generate the applications, we're kind of doing some selling, right? We're talking about the high level benefits and working for the company, all the benefits. Then we go into discovery and qualifying. And then now we end by selling. Okay. So I start with the vision, right? Where we're at now, where we're going, what our mission is, what our values are, and what it means to be a part of our company. Start with this big picture. Then I go down to where they fit in. Okay. And essentially you go down to where they fit in. I talk about the mission of the role, the KPIs, outcomes, responsibilities, then basically kind of the constituent parts of those KPIs. So for instance, they have to hit a certain amount of production a month. That means you're gonna have to be available for a certain amount of calendar slots, probably take a certain amount of calls, certain amount of shows, close a certain amount. So I kind of I give them the outcome and I'm like, here's kind of like chunking down how you would hit it. And I do that for their top 3 or 4, 5 tops responsibilities, and then the time requirement, and then the pay. So if you want to, we model ours pretty closely off who, if you want to check that out. And then the next one is the onboarding process. So really high level overview. I think I did include a resource for you later in this training, but as a really high level overview, the first 7 days, there's 2 types of onboarding. There's company specific onboarding and role specific onboarding. Okay. Company specific is basically the onboarding everybody in your company goes through. So that's like, you get on Slack, you get introed on a meeting, you learn about what we sell, you learn about our mission as a company, you learn about our core values. It's that stuff, right? At a very, very high level. Okay. The role specific onboarding is the onboarding for the specific role. And within role specific, there's essentially general, which might just be like learning the product, like for sales, learning the product, going through testimonials, just the very high level stuff. And then basically I break it down into 3 core SOPs: beginning of day process, middle of day process, end of day process. So beginning of day is how to conduct yourselves at the meetings, how to show up with projections, which is our system for them projecting out their numbers and actually hitting their numbers accurately. So that's a whole nother aside, but essentially if our sales team says they're going to do 40 units, right? So 40 deals at 10K, let's say this month, 80% of them will hit that. And if it's less than 80, they're probably over projecting. If it's more than 80, they're under projecting. And that's team wide. Some people, I'm serious, like the lady I told you about who's our best rep, she just hits it every time. And that's so much different from a 10X culture of like, oh, I'm gonna hit, what's your goal this month? 100 units, 1 million, and then they just don't they don't hit it, right? Like most sales teams, I'm going to do all this stuff this week. I'm going to set this big goal, and then they don't hit it every time. Whereas with us, we set a projection. It's not your goal. Your projection is like what you're going to hit or friggin' die trying. And if you guys have read the book by, it's Andrew something. It's high output management. It's by the one guy who was a COO of Intel. You know, everybody talks about it with operations as being like the Bible and stuff. What he talks about in there, this is the best thing I got from the book because it applied to my situation, is if their goals or outcomes, they need to be high enough to where even if they do everything that they could possibly do, there's an 80% chance they could still miss. That's what really gets people to stretch and innovate. So that's another aside. So anyways, beginning of day process is how to set those projections. I mean, there's a whole training on projections, right? How to conduct yourselves at the meetings. Cause like if you come out on one of our meetings and you're like a deer in the headlights, I will throw you off the meeting, like immediately. So our meetings are tight. Like we have one of the things about our private clients on our highest level thing, it's like 52K, is they get to attend our sales meetings. And people will say that's the most, like just attending a sales meeting is worth the 52K. Because they're like, I've never even seen a meeting like this. It's like a real freaking crazy meeting, you know? And so those things are, it's like the cornerstone of our company. So projections, meetings, how to prepare for your day. Middle of day process is let me do end of day. End of day is basically how to wrap up, do their admin, and do what's called their end of day report. I think we're going to talk about that later. Then middle of day process is essentially, there's two things a sales rep can be doing. They can be on calls or they can be not on a call, trying to generate a call. That's all you do. That's the beauty about sales. Do calls, generate calls. It's like, yeah, just tunnel vision, boom. So what your middle of the day processes are going to be that you're going to walk them through in the onboarding is what are all the different ways and processes in which you can generate calls, and what are all the ways, like what is the baseline process for us to handle consults, sales calls, okay? You know, they're going to attend meetings in the first 7 days. Our meetings are basically, they run on, actually, let me save that. I'm going to talk about that later. They're going to shadow some of the best people, hopefully like, make sure, this is also key, have them shadow one person. Okay, at first that should be you, then eventually should be your sales lead, and then eventually your sales manager. Because if you got them shadowing a bunch of people, confusion, okay? And if they're confused and they're uncertain in their sales process, it's gonna transfer uncertainty to the prospects not gonna buy. And then 3 one-on-ones with the leader manager a week. Okay. So, and then the second 7 days, you do all these things still, and then you're going to start them off at 50% volume at 3 a day. And then you want to do daily call reviews with them on the meetings and additional role plays and reviews on the one-on-ones that you're going to have 3 a week. So you're going to have a high touch point with this person, and you're going to have a daily meeting, and you're going to basically review a call with them on the meeting every single day. Okay. We'll talk about meeting cadence later. I gotta get hop in here. So do quantitative and qualitative benchmarks when you ramp reps. Quantitatively, first 20 calls, you want them to be 10 to 15% closing ratio. So like they've closed 1 or 2, 30 to 40 calls trending towards KPI, and then 50 calls KPI. Okay. Now KPI can be different for every offer. Generally 20 to 30% is KPI. Okay. So that's quantitatively how we measure it. But qualitatively, we want to see how they're showing up to meetings. Are they being proactive? If they're not hitting numbers, are they being proactive and trying to figure out why they're not hitting numbers? Or are they being a victim? Are they asking questions? Are they mad? Are they hungry? Are they pissed? Like you should kind of get that from them if they're not doing well. If you're listening to the recordings, right? Like how do they sound? Are they just missing some technical things, but they sound really good? Or like, are they having a sales trauma is what I call. Like I don't want to be on the hook for trying to alleviate somebody's like beliefs about selling and you know, like they just sound really weird on the phone. There's those people. I'm not going to do that. Right? I will help them become a great salesperson if they have the raw materials. Okay. And also like, is your lead quality good? Like, you know, maybe you're having like it's December sometimes, Q4, you're gonna have some bad dips in lead quality. What's your gut say about them? Okay. So those are, because basically quantitative is what we want to do. But if qualitatively, you know, on day 2 to let them go. Most of our people, they don't even make, like if we fire them, they don't get 50 calls. Like we fire people legit in the first, usually like 3-4 days if they're not good, but we know, like we can just tell, right? Because we've done this. I recommend withholding your judgment until you have the experience a little bit, and then maybe focusing more on quantitative metrics, but you want to use both. So I included this for you guys in here. But basically if you want to know how to build sales teams, I included basically 3 SOPs. So here's the entire recruiting and hiring playbook. So this goes over different types of sales recruits, when to start recruiting and how, the entire process, example posts and copy that you guys could use, initial application. So like, here's kind of like what you're looking for in the initial application, the screening interview, how to do the screening interview, the mock call, how to do the mock call, all that stuff. And then I also included like how to onboard the reps and create your sales playbook. There's 2 phases of onboarding. There's ramp up and optimization and regulation. So how to do all of that stuff. Beginning of day processes, end of day, so I included all of that. And then also how to ramp them. So what to do with the first 7 days of training, the second 7 days of training, all the way up to 28 days, and then quantitative and qualitative measurements of when to cut closers and setters respectively. So I'll give you guys these slides. I literally could have just done a presentation on those. So I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna give them some resources. Sales management. Okay, so let's talk about that. So this is step 4, recap. At this point, you got 2 closers. You delegated sales calls, you're not on sales calls anymore, you took a vacation, okay? On the plane to Hawaii, you're looking at your phone, there's Stripe notifications coming up. That's what I always write in my sales copy. So now what you have to do in stage 4 is fully embrace being a sales manager. What you want to avoid is the dreaded pendulum swing, okay? This is what everybody does. They're on the phones all day, every day. They're like, I really want to get off calls. They finally get their closers and KPI. They go on a vacation. They're like, dude, I'm done. They're like, sales team, you guys manage yourselves. I'm not listening to calls. You guys know what you're doing. Love you. I pay you a lot. Bye. And then what happens is people quit. They stop performing. The team's a mess. Your culture sucks, everything. So here's the thing you want to know is salespeople are the only people in any position that can't perform if they're uninspired, right? Your accountant can do your books perfectly if they're completely miserable and have to take Prozac every day or whatever it is. Your like marketing director, right? They could probably run your marketing team and be miserable and hate their lives. Your operations people, they can push buttons and do work and not what like they do. If salespeople are uninspired, they can't perform. They can't sell if they're not inspired. So with sales, energy in is energy out. I would argue too with marketing and writing and copywriters, this is the same, okay? But with salespeople, energy in, energy out. That's why you gotta have a daily meeting. You gotta invest into them. And if you don't wanna do that, then just don't have a sales team. Okay, I just don't, there's like not, there's a way you can hire a manager eventually to do this, but right now you gotta do it. So, I'm gonna break this down. This slide's, you're gonna hate this slide, but just bear with me for a second, okay? So in order for us to understand what to do as a sales manager, we're gonna break out all the responsibilities. Now, this is gonna look like a lot, but what we're gonna do is I'm gonna teach you guys how to offload these things systematically and relatively quickly, okay? But we gotta do the things to know what to offload. So, with sales management, there's 3 types of responsibilities. They go into 3 categories. There's coaching and training, administrative and operations, and leadership. Okay, coaching and training is exactly what it sounds like. On the morning meetings, you're doing projections, training, call reviews, all that stuff. On the one-on-one calls, you're giving them some coaching. Typically with one-on-one calls, like morning meetings is daily. One-on-one calls, you want to do 2 to 3 for the first 2 to 3 weeks. And then after that, you want to do bi-weekly if you're the entrepreneur. If you're a dedicated sales manager, you want to do weekly. Believe me, we've tested weekly versus bi-weekly. We always do weekly now. End of day reports. Basically, this is a report that they give in Slack. I believe the template's in that thing I gave you. And so they comment on that. They might give them a call based on their end of day report. And then they also do call reviews, right? We want to do call reviews on the one-on-ones if possible, on the meetings, and also some that like aren't on meetings that we just listen to, record a video on ScreenFlow, send them the recording. Okay, that's all the coaching and training responsibilities. Administrative and operations is grading and approving and removing applications. So we don't just let any application on the calendar. We have a grading system. That's a whole nother SOP. It could be a whole nother presentation, but we have a grading system. We score everything through 1 through 5 based on different criteria. And some go to setters, some go to closers. Okay. basically, you know, they maintain proper attribution of all sales opportunities and close deals. They communicate to the marketing team what's available based on KPI. They make sure closers and setters do their admin, so their end-of-day checklists. They make sure our tracking is accurate, and they kind of are the liaison between marketing and sales. The final responsibility is leadership, okay? Leadership is very simple. You run the meetings, you do projections, you communicate vision, mission, and values. Now, if you're like, oh my God, I don't want to create a sales team anymore, this is awful, it's going to get better, I promise, okay? But we got to understand this first. Stage 5 is we hire a sales coordinator. And really stage 5 delegating sales calls, understanding sales management, and doing a sales coordinator. These kind of things happen all simultaneously. Okay. Because basically, even if you have one rep, I would have a sales coordinator. Okay. So you see all these responsibilities that you probably saw and you're like, God, I don't want to do those. Immediately, what we're going to do is offload those to somebody on our operations team. So, I mean, if you guys are at the point where you're hiring sales reps, you should already be at a point where essentially, you have an operations person or two. And so all of these things on the screen here, admin and ops, you offload on somebody doing $3 to $4 grand a month, pay, operations, assistant level, can just do all of this. Okay. Do all of them. So right then and there, that takes a ton of stuff off your plate. And a lot of entrepreneurs, this is so key, because for $3 to $4 grand a month, you got rid of the worst activities. Because all the entrepreneurs I work with, when they really hate being a sales manager, it's almost always they hate the administrative and operations part of it. So, and that's not something a skilled person needs to do. You can have somebody else do that. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. I got 14 minutes. So I'm trying to roll through this. Just in case you guys need it, I included, so for hiring a sales coordinator, here's their entire SOP and scorecard. So I just did that for you. Now, step 6. So to recap, step 1, validated offer. Step 2, we validated the optimal selling system. Step 3, we delegated sales calls. We onboarded 2 reps. Step 4, we understood the 3 types of sales responsibilities as a manager. Step 5, we brought on the sales coordinator, right? So now we're only doing coaching and training and leadership, which means at the end of the day, you're doing morning meetings and you're doing a bi-weekly one-on-one. And then you're looking at their end-of-day reports. So I just got your management time from like a lot, like a full-time gig, down to like 60 to 90 minutes a day tops, maybe even less. Okay. You might have to go through this again to kind of get a few of these things. Step 6 is identifying your sales lead. Okay. So essentially now we got rid of these. Okay. We got rid of this one. Now what we're going to do is get rid of the coaching and the training. Okay. The way we're going to do that is hiring a sales lead. Okay. So once we have 3, and you could do this with 2 closers, to be honest, it's really whenever you have a standout A player superstar. Okay. But usually it's around 3 to 4 closers is when people know they have that breakout person. Okay. We want to identify what we call the sales lead. They're going to do everything in the coaching training, they're going to do everything in the coaching training responsibilities we just covered. They're going to do all the one-on-ones, especially onboarding and training. That's the works. So they're just going to do that. They're going to help lead the meetings when you're not there. They can do like breakout rooms. They can do like separate trainings. They're going to do separate call reviews for the reps on downtime. They're going to do end-of-day reports. Hopefully you guys can see this. My screen's like so massive that I just sometimes don't realize that this might be small font. And they're also going to take calls. They're a player coach. Okay. So the way to think about this is they're your player coach, but they're your sales manager in training. Okay. They're your sales manager in training. And the great thing is if you have a relationship with this person, like, most sales reps, they want to be the manager because they like coaching better than they like taking calls. And, like, dude, you're only going to be on calls so much. Like it kind of burns you out. That's why a lot of sales reps get burned out. So, it's a tough gig. So it's a huge win for that. Like they want to become the manager, lead the team, not take calls. Right. So that's kind of a little bit of a carrot that we dangle here. And then essentially, essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to give them extra responsibility to allow themselves to prove themselves in a 2, 3, 4 month pathway to becoming manager. And to be honest, we don't pay usually anything for these people. They just want to take on the responsibility because they're so bought in. But you could also pay like $2 to $4 grand a month. It also depends on how big your team is. But at this level, 2, 3 closers, 4 closers, I would not pay a whole lot. Okay. Now, so at this point, you only have to do the morning meetings. You should look through the end of the day reports. That takes 2 seconds. And then bi-weekly one-on-ones. Okay. So by now we got the investment time down to 30 to 60 minutes a day. You see how this is working? Okay. Finally, we move that lead into management full-time. So at this stage, that lead should have significant coaching experience. And like, you should kind of be certain, like, all right, this person can just take over. I know for me, I didn't really offload the meetings or anything until I was doing about 1.5 million a month in sales. But most people around 500-600 plus, you get to the point where you just kind of offload. Okay. And so you're doing the daily meetings, one-on-ones in the day reports. What you want to start doing is like, when you want to take, like today. Well, I mean, I don't do the meetings regardless, but for the longest time on Thursdays, I have my group coaching call with our clients conflict with our sales meeting. So I have my sales leads start to take those. And then I had them start to take, some other days where I was off, or maybe I just wanted a little bit more time for deep work. And then after that, I was like, you know what, you guys take Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then after that, I was like, you guys take Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And then I threw in Wednesdays. And then now basically what I do is like, I just kind of pop in whenever I want. A lot of times I'll pop in on Mondays and I'll kind of get everybody a little bit pumped up and then I bounce. So that's sort of the transition. It never usually happens. It's not like this thing where you make a huge announcement and it's a big shift. It's usually something gradual where it just sort of like happens. If you guys want to know what the pay sales managers, depends, but usually it's going to be about a 2 to 4% override on cash. Okay. It all depends kind of like on where you're at. Long story short, if they're selling full time for you, if they make slightly less, but they don't have to be on calls, they will take it. So usually what I do is I make it so they make slightly less. They don't have to be on calls, but if they grow the team, they get more upside, or if the team doesn't do good, they get downside. Hopefully that makes sense. I included the full sales manager scorecard right here as well, guys. So you can see bada bing, bada boom. If you need to hire one, you got it. Okay. We got 8 minutes. I don't know if you guys want, step 8 is pretty complex. And this is where I'm at right now. So I kind of like talking about it, but if there is any question, so important process reps and tips. If anybody has questions or is slightly overwhelmed, I would like to answer those if you guys want to open it up.
If anybody has any questions, just feel free to unmute yourself or use a chat box.
Hey, Cole, I'm at a point where I have 2 companies and I'm planning to hire, I was going to hire 1 salesperson, but with your advice, maybe I should have 2 and then see how they compete against each other and then, get them trained. And then I wasn't planning to do this kind of extensive training, but it sounds like I really have to, that foundation for these salespeople is really important too. If you can comment on some of that.
Yeah, I mean, dude, here's the thing. So with our company, usually what happens is it's very rare to where I can get somebody their first time trying to do the sales team. Usually what happens is they do it and it's a disaster. And then they're like, oh my God, this is way more than I thought it was going to be. And then they reach out to us. So, and the thing is, man, if you do what I laid out here, and I know I just like fire hosed it, right? But I kind of thought I had 90 minutes, but it's all good. If you do it like this, I'm telling you, if I get a client to do this, always will succeed. Always. Like their sales team just wins. And if you do it properly from the start, you start to set the foundations so that it's autopilot eventually. So long story short, you do have to do a good amount of extensive training, especially in the beginning. But remember, your sales team is an asset for your business that is going to produce you sales every single day. If I would never have done that work in the beginning, I wouldn't have something that just makes 100 to 200 grand a day on autopilot, So it is key to do. Just remember, your sales team it's the only part of your business where you get money. That's where the money is exchanging hands. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I was gonna wonder what stage to we're all at different stages of entrepreneurship here, but what stage would you recommend someone like reaching out to someone like you? Or are you really catered for really the big businesses, or we as sort of solo entrepreneurs, starting to approach the 7-figure mark? Is that a good time to reach out to?
Yeah. So typically our thing is developed around people who are essentially the way I developed it is the average person is doing 30 to 50K a month. They're a coach, consultant, or an agency, or have a high ticket service-based business. And they kind of got the lead flow figured out. They're on some sales calls and they're ready to hire their first sales team. Right. And so it's kind of an end-to-end thing with that. What we do, we place them with sales reps and we help with the training. And it obviously, as you could see, people just don't realize what it is. And the only reason I was able to do this so fast and grow my sales team is because when I was a sales rep, I sold for all these different companies, and I kind of stair-stepped to a better company, and I eventually got to a company who at the time was the industry leader, definitely, in my opinion, especially on the sales team front. And so I learned so much there because of how they were doing it. And then I kind of even made it better when I started my own thing. But it's all designed around people who are really hiring that first rep, whether that be a setter or a closer. Sometimes a setter, sometimes a closers. I kind of kept this more closer focused because I didn't want to overwhelm you.
Cole, when you were working as a sales rep for some of these other big companies, what was maybe the biggest struggle that you saw them doing that if you could go back now, you would tell them to do differently?
Yeah. So here's the thing, guys, is basically this will make it really simple. So if I can usually get clients to do these 3 things, they succeed with their sales team. So why we call it the big 3. Okay. Morning meetings, daily, end of day reports, and proper training. And in the morning meetings, the way you run these is you start with wins, announcements, projections, training / role play. I can't tell you how often companies who I talk to, or we work with, they're always like, man, I can't believe how much having meetings help. It's like, yeah. And also culture is huge in sales, right? I think a lot of people, we pulled the room right now, people would say, oh man, if I asked you guys, what's the most important part of your sales team? Some of you guys probably say culture, sales culture, right? Well, think about this. Culture, how does culture take place? Culture can only take place when team members are present together. If you are a remote company, when are team members going to be present together? Meetings. And I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news sometimes, but one of the things that I don't think people understand is when you look at the big companies out there, and at least our industry, and there's exceptions, guys. I'm not gonna lie, but usually, if you look at companies doing $1 million to 3 million a month, they have a lot of meetings, and it is important. I would say a lot of my days are meetings. What I do is I have Thursday and Monday, I just block with meetings, 15. I literally have 15 meetings today. Just bam, 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 get them done. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no meetings. So that's how I do it, but meetings are so key. End of day reports. I wonder if I can show you guys these. End of day reports, you can see basically, here's a report. It's Agent John, date, how many consults he had. Look, he had a really bad show rate, only 3 shows. And then he lists the person, the setter, and then the result. Then he details the consult. So this gives you such an easy high level view of like what's going on the phones. And then when you see inconsistencies, what you want to do when you look at these is you want to see ones that could have closed but didn't close. And then you want to review those on the next meeting. To be honest, like the essential is like you can make a pretty good sales team with just doing these three. And this would take you legit 60 minutes a day in the morning. And that's like the essentialism thing, right? Maybe I should have done the presentation on that. Just like, here you guys go. Like, here's the bare minimum. You know, there's more you can do. I do recommend doing one-on-ones at least bi-weekly with all of your direct reports. It's so big. Like the dude from IBM, the COO guy, he wrote a whole chapter on that. But this is like kind of the essentials is these things. And then proper tracking. I'll show you guys what a good tracking dashboard looks like. If you guys go to my free Facebook group, I'll put the link in the chat. We actually give this away for free, but you could see like, you have like basically a thing, you know, with all the months, and then each rep has their individual tabs. So I've like, we've experimented with tracking a lot, and it's done a lot for us, that sheet. Do you have a template you could share for developing our diagnostic process for every sale? So what I would do is, let's see if this link comes up, secrets. So this is my free group. In the free group, I just put it in the chat for you guys. In the free group, if you go to units, it's called guides now, which is interesting. Man, I got like 36 trainings in here on different type of stuff. There's one that's called the $10 million a year sales process. So there's stuff in here. Let me go on YouTube. Here it is. Bam. That video kind of covers it, I would say. I mean, at a high level. Obviously, you know, we have whole programs on it and stuff, but yeah. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, it looks like Corey has a question in the chat box there, Cole. You can hear me read off or see it.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, it's more of a framework than a script. You know, I will say though, I mean, when you have a lot of these conversations, you get it pretty damn close to a script though. You know, it's kind of funny, like especially if you have the same people on the phone every single time, you can get it pretty close.
Well, Cole, thank you very much. That was a lot of content. Like Linda said, we will definitely post a recording next week and make sure we include all the documents that Cole had provided for us. So Cole, I appreciate all the content there and you taking time to share this with us. That was really great.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I know I fire hosed you guys, but if you guys go through this recording, like a lot of the key points are there. So, I mean, it's probably something to come back to, but yeah, I only know one speed and it's like the fire hose. So appreciate it, man. I would love this recording too, if you could send it to me.
Yeah, Linda, we'll definitely get it to you for sure.
Awesome. Alrighty. Thank you guys.
All right, Cole. Thank you.